Okay, first question was from Cat Pilot. Several months ago, John stated that they were looking at a way to tell the LCS app a switch's position after the switch was activated by its non-derailing function. John stated it was developed for fast-track switches and Atlas non-derailing modules. Two parts of this question. What is the status of this effort? So the first answer, we have prototypes of the LCS switch monitor, which is on the layout. We'll show that. That is the STM2. We're still trying to figure out what happened to the STM1. And are doing testing at this time, point in time. We understand this LCS module will be very important for detecting switch positions to keep the app in sync. B part of the question, what about this DZ2500 switch machine with the DZ1008 relay module? Will the LCS app be able to tell which switch position from the DZ1008 relay? We're still trying to support as many switch controllers as possible and are continuing that testing effort. Once we have confirmed the design, we could have the modules in production in 3 to 4 months. And this is where I say refer to your diagram, probably the second page. And this will all be part of the answers on the forum, so if you don't have a diagram in front of you, you'll be able to check that later. Below is a diagram of my current pre-LCS setup followed by my proposed LCS setup. See attached PDF. Currently, the Manco signal booster is able to drive my many TPCs, ASCs, etc. My question, an earlier post by Lionel, it sounded like the SCR2 would be able to drive many TPCs and ASCs. Any idea on how many devices the SCR2 will drive? Specifically, will the SCR2 be able to drive my multiple TPCs, 6, ASCs, AVCs, and maybe a VPC? If the SCR2 cannot drive all these, can the Manco signal booster insert it after the SCR2 to boost the signal and drive more devices? So, this is the same drawings you guys have and will be posted on the forum along with the summary. It's a pretty complicated diagram. And John's answer to that was, the SCR2 and base L1 use the same transistor output driver for the RS-232 serial data on the 9-pin connector. We did not use an RS-232 line driver IC like in the legacy 990 base. As the drive current is limited to one load. The SCR2 drive level is capable of higher current and will support many unit loads. Since each of the devices listed above have different drive level requirements, I won't comment on the particular configuration listed. I have recently installed an SCR2 with 24 ASC tubes, which is the second picture that John sent along. I did have to add a load resistor to the wiring to facilitate the logic load. It seems the ASC has some issues with low logic voltage. Basically, I added a 510 ohm resistor across the serial data to common wires. I do not have the Manco booster, but my belief is it won't cause any issues to place it after the SCR2 if it helps the configuration properly. And that's the, like I said, the second picture, and that's the driver all from the SCR2 here. Ask about plug-and-play questions. Where does the accessory get its power? If not command equipped, what cable is needed to hook them up to the new SC2s? The accessories gets power potentially from several sources. There are fast-track sections with connector arrangements specifically for accessories. There are activation tracks that use an isolated outside rail to supply the power to the accessory. Having the correct connector arrangements for the accessories. We will include a pigtail connector with the accessory that has loose wires for connecting to an ASC2 or any power source. How are the speed of the accessories controlled? The non-TMCC legacies ones, such as the ice station and log loader, come to mind, as how fast they operate. The speed of the accessory operation is variable with the input voltage setting. The accessories are designed to operate from 12 to 18 volts AC or DC. Any feature that has undesirable operation at higher voltages, such as the log loader, stakes use regulated power. Not sure if that really answers the question. Legacy Cab 2. Will we ever be able to access more than 2 engine IDs on a cab 2 at the same time. When switching from say ID 2 to ID 45, it sure would be nice if I were running 6 legacy engines to keep on pushing the engine button to access each one of the 6 engines running instead of having to scroll, search for the other 4 engines, and then have to re-enter the previous engine ID to control. It really gets old quick, and yes, I do run 5 legacy engines at the same time, 3 of which are on a separate loop of track. I think what the question was, if he can just use the engine button to scroll through a group of 5. And the answer to that one was no. No plans exist for this functionality at this time. Will the plug and play accessories lock on? Will the plug and play accessories lock on track just act as a power supply for the accessories, or will also give the user the option to trigger accessories like an insulated rail would when a train passes over the lock on track by way of dip switches underneath? This is sort of kind of like the last question. I believe that these are 2 different products we will offer, an activation and a power tap. So I think that was kind of answered in the previous question.
Hey Marty, I'll clear that up later.
I also told John that I figured you'd probably have more information on that, so he wasn't overly concerned. What are the characteristics of the SER2 module output? Is it true RS-232 or just a 0 to 5 volt unipolar signal? 0 to 5 volt unipolar signal. What is Lionel's experience with a Wi-Fi update of an iPad modified engine roster to the legacy base? At first, John didn't understand this question, and I kind of took it upon myself to try to figure out what the question was, and I guess there was some issues when updating the engine roster via the iPad to the legacy base. And the answer I got back from that was, we have not seen such a problem with the iPad base updating since we had it retries. Never saw a crash. We did have an iPad that dropped out of the network a lot, so it is possible the iPad is an issue in this case. If one could drive the 0 to 5 volt receive and send serial data, the MAX 232 interface with proper polarity, is there a path to the legacy base for the purpose of running LSU program on the Windows computer? The LSU program expects to be linked directly to the base via the serial cable from the computer. We will release a Wi-Fi version of LSU for folks who use the LCS modules and starter cable systems. Wednesday night at 9:30, I got the first LCS Wi-Fi program, so we'll show that a little bit. I was reading there is no boost command. While it can be worked around, is there one on the list for future? And again, I had to interpret that to meaning not on the iPad app. No boost command is planned for the iPad app. This is a little removed from the general expertise, but are there any plans to allow creations of macros on the LCS app so that one can personalize multiple command sequences that are often needed? One such macro could be install of the macro button TR1 boost, for example. The next one, macro 2 TR2 boost, and so forth. This could be implemented as record functions within the app. Create a button to play sequences of keystrokes, poke one of those buttons and the track voltage goes full with one poke. This is actually a pretty interesting thought, one that I kind of like, because you could make a macro instead of using the recording track, let the iPad send out the signals to do the various operations rather than having to use a sensor track to accomplish that. I was thinking, you know, things on the side, maybe things aren't as critical. They could just play sound sequences, blow whistles and stuff like that. You start the macro and it just sends out the commands. The question, or the answer to that was, not at this time. We have a number of active LCS partners. Perhaps they will offer macro recording capability. Are there plans to update the LCS iPad app to control AMCs and the OTCs? With the OTCs both uncouple and operate cars. We have the ASC2 set up to run uncoupling tracks. We have not addressed the OTC tracks. The AMC2 will be available next year. The original AMC command sets are too convoluted to carry forward. Most of our new designs are not using toggle or unavailable keystrokes that are prevalent with older modules. As such, sometimes the iPad app won't be able to support some of the older modules like the AMC. But please note we did not prevent the older modules from working with the cab controllers connected through the LCS SER2. No loss of functionality, just no new features will be supported on the ABC, TPC, AMC, OTC modules. Does anybody got that list of three-letter acronyms to figure out what all this stuff is? We were considering a wireless version of the TPC similar to the legacy PowerMasters with 360-watt capacity. I will ask Rudy to make a list of supported modules for LCS, and we may be able to incorporate the modules currently not supported with time and revisions of the LCS app. The SER2 was advertised to be able to attach to your computer so you could operate legacy system utility. Will this still be accomplished? This got by us. We're not sure we will be able to get the LSU to work on SER2. Sorry. We are working on the version of LSU that can connect to a Wi-Fi module, which addresses the issue when a Wi-Fi module is present. Will the iCab app be able to function on the iPad? Yes, and that's what I'm going to probably actually end up using rather than my iPhone for the little demo. Are there definite plans to develop and add on IR transmitters to be added to boxcars, etc., to the function through the sensor check? If yes, time frame. We believe so. Ultimately, this is a marketing decision. And my comment was, go to the Lionel booth and tell them we'd really like to see this. That's the only way it's going to get done. What are you grumbling about there? Any plans to enhance the sensor track to be able to start programming and record functions in the cab too? Unfortunately, this is one of the things I would like to see too, because not all our sensor tracks are going to be where you can reach them. And unfortunately, not at this time. It's not a no, it's a not at this time. Now that Legacy seems to be embraced, now that Lionel seems to be embracing accessories again, will we see more legacy-controlled, operated, and sound-equipped products that are not engines? This would, of course, include rolling stock. It is good to see the cranes released again with a bit of a legacy upgrade. We hope so. The general feel in our marketing team indicates that folks don't want command-controlled accessories. Please voice your opinions to marketing if you wish to see more legacy command-controlled accessories. What can you tell us about the LCS Partner Program? Is it gaining interest? We have a number of developers that are hard at work on developing apps and hardware. All aspects of the developer program are under an NDA, I know that one, non-disclosure, and such. I'm sorry I can't go into more depth. We do spend as much time as possible for our developers to accomplish their goals. Any thoughts? Any thoughts of adding more random accessory sounds to the iPad app that may be paired with buttons and toggle switches to add more to those controls? In case you're explain that one a little bit, there are some accessories that are part of the app that add crane noises and magnetic noises for the magnetic crane and just general overall machinery sound when you play those. And the root of this question was, okay, maybe you have a log loader that you're just triggering with a toggle switch. Maybe you can assign a sound with that that maybe makes some log noises or something like that. Just some random sounds or sounds that you may be able to record and tag with that accessory button push. As budget and time permits, we will expand the features of the LCS app. We're in an early release cycle of our modules and apps. We will take a position to gather feedback for a bit before we commit to more development efforts. Regarding LCS, will we see additional modules that may do sound and lighting controls of the layout as well? Realizing some of these could be achieved with current LCS modules, were there any plans to bring out specialized modules for these applications? We have lots of ideas for LCS and the development of more exciting applications of the technology. Ultimately, our customers and marketing decides what to become useful and produce. Keep the ideas coming and keep using the products and providing feedback. It does make a difference. Any hints of what's coming next? No comment. I tried. It seems that folks have been very creative in adding the sensor track to existing layouts that include other track systems. Is Lionel still entertaining the idea of creating something that can be used with other track systems, or is the market taking care of that? I personally discussed the possibility of assigning electronics to other manufacturers who produce track systems. There is a general agreement we will work together in the future to support the hobby with sensor tracks and their track systems, so that sounds very promising.
STM.
And I'll hold that position. Now obviously,
that's pretty much all
I can sit here and throw my switch. Changes, you see the display change. The question was, well, I step in front of Chris here. What happens on the non-derailing feature? Well, before, unless you threw the switch from the iPad, it didn't know the position. Well, now with the STM, the switch knows the position. It doesn't matter whether you fire it from your cab the non-derailing, if you fired from the iCab app, that switch or the iPad will always know what that switch is doing. I heard some folks yesterday talking, or actually I think it was on the forum, about half throws. I don't know how that's going to be handled, if it's going to be handled, but in my opinion that's a pretty good step in the right direction. The other thing that follows, I got some blocks made, just some simple blocks. Turn off the siding. I did some couple of lights to simulate some blocks. Switch, of course. Now the blocks are being generated by the BPC2, which is the FAR LCS box. The ASC2, which isn't out yet. I think I heard that that's in production. Mike might know that.
ASC?
ASC2.
On the water.
On the water. One thing John wanted to make sure that I emphasized, you do not need the ASC2 to use the STM. It all depends on what switch you're using. If you're using a command switch, you don't need the ASC2 for the STM. The STM is a separate animal on the network that simply ties into the switch to monitor the switch position. So the ASC2 isn't needed for the STM to operate.
Hey Marty, also works with SC2s.
SC2s? Kind of figured it would. I got the SCR2 up here. I didn't have anything to connect to. The only reason I bought it, thinking, well, I'll connect LSU to it. We kind of know how that worked out. But obviously for some of the other devices we mentioned earlier, TPCs, anything that takes a data string from the command base, that's what the SCR2 is. The Wi-Fi unit, basically that allows iPhones, iPads to connect, and like I mentioned earlier, at 9:30 the other night, of course my computer fell asleep. We did get a beta version of the LCS utility. It is connected, well, right now it's not connected. Now it's connected up. It's connected up Wi-Fi. This one has a little bit more functionality. You have engine data. You now have train data. And I'm going to kind of move, this is one of the camera guys here. I'll kind of move in. There's some little icons showing what trains are built into that train. You now have accessory components to the LSU. switch and routes, and your base data, which is my lug demo, route throw rates, and it gives me the version. You can still do make modules, system modules, engine modules. So basically it has all the functionality of the original LSU, and which everybody was kind of asking for. What about trains? What about accessories? What about switches? That's all in there. I don't know when that's released. Like I said, John emailed me Tuesday night and said, would you like to try this if we can get it done? 9:30 Wednesday night, when I was already packed up. The file came through, so I unpacked and made sure it connected and everything. So that takes care of the problem connecting to the SCR2, and unless, of course, you don't have the Wi-Fi module, and then you'll still have to connect to the base directly. At this point, that's kind of my iCab. Let's take a quick look at that. The one I got here is an early beta copy. And the question was, can it run on an iPad? Yes, it can.
Oh, it's for the visually deficient, I see. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Well, it's the ×1 ×2 deal. So I can hit roster. This is everything that's loaded in my base. I can select that engine, which is sitting here. Incidentally, within the setup of this app, under the, I forget the iPad, where you can set up different various features, you can actually change the direction. Not really sure that's relevant for most people. Just a quick overview. Obviously, whistle, bell. You don't get the single strike bell with the bell option as of right now. Couplers, direction control, brake, halt. You got to hold that more than, it's like 2-3 seconds. You have switch control, so switch, that's switch 31. Kind of put you in mind of just what you're used to on the cab. Go into expert mode, you have your railroad speeds, you have smoke on and off. Smoke is not variable like on the, it's either on, off, it's not the 3 steps. Got roll, reset, start up and shut down. Go to control, you have main volumes, you got your volume blend, labor up and down, 3 sets of momentums. Again, medium, like we're used to, you can't dial that variably. You got your aux2 to shut off your lights. You got your cab light on and off. You can do programming, set, hold, you know, same functionality that you have on the cab 2. Dialogues, and this is a little bit interesting. You notice the green is highlighted. These are all because the engine's in the stop position.
In position. Brakes are set. Over. Dispatcher here. Take the green. Over. Dispatcher here. Please hold your position. Over.
Now let me change direction on that so I don't go off the edge of the
I'm
board.
looking at that block signal. Out.
Now if I move throttle, they change. Now these are highlighted green.
How's the track look? Light clear. Over. Dispatcher here. You're lined up and clear inbound. Over. Dispatcher here. Come to a full stop. Over. Copy that. Full stop.
You have your trains. Like I said, this is an early model, so some of the functionality that's got changed for the release isn't in here yet. But that's a quick overview of the iCab. Like I said, it's running right now on my iPad. It runs on the phone pretty well. So at this point, I can disconnect it too. There we go.
I guess the presentation's over.
Nope. Mr. Reagan, we're going to bring Mr. Reagan up for some Q&A.
We're all done. Out.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everybody. How are we? All right. All chipper, ready for York? Huh? Yeah. All right, so let me cover a couple things, then we'll open it up for some questions. Regarding plug and play. So the mantra behind plug and play is that whole system is pretty much designed for the new user, right? We're trying to attract new people to the hobby, trying to get them less afraid of let's strip the wire and put it here and there, and so on and so on. So plug and play is geared towards the new user. We haven't excluded you guys. We have basically two styles of connectors in the system. We have a 3-position, 3-foot cord that comes off of each accessory. That 3-position connector is basically power, ground, and the center wire is insulated ground. So for most of your accessories, like the 497 coal loader, you've got that 3-foot cable with 3 positions on it. We're really only using power and ground. That's where your power is coming from. With every accessory, there's a 3-position female connector that plugs into that, 8-inch 3-position female connector that plugs into that 3-foot male 3-position connector. What it gives you on the end is 3 wires with leads on them. So it's pretty much the same as what you've all been used to. From a service perspective, it's great. Because if you include that cable in your wiring, you have to service the accessory, just unplug it, take it off. So instead of having those 3 spindly wires in a color code that you put in 7 years ago that you don't remember, it makes putting it back into the equation a lot easier. The other cable that we have is a 6-position cable. That is dedicated to go between the accessory and the control box. We are tooling up an entirely new control box. It's very Art Deco looking. It has the ribs on it. It has the circle L at a 45-degree angle. Very nice looking control box for the conventional accessories. That 6-position cable is dedicated to plugging into the control box. So it's all a self-contained circuit. So in the past we've had, take an accessory, you've got 2 switches. One's momentary, one's on-off. So you've got wires going everywhere. This makes it much cleaner, much neater, and for our new people coming into the hobby, for them, they take it out of the box, they literally plug it in, and they're running trains. They're running their accessory. For those of you that have command control and want these accessories, want some of these more conventional style accessories to work in a command environment, you simply take the female 6-pin, plug it into that end of that cable. You've got 6 bare wires, or 6 wires that are tinned on the end. Put them to your ASC2, your ASC, your AMC2, whatever device you have, SC2, and you can still control it the same way. One of the things that we're really investing a lot of time in carefully is the instruction manuals. The instruction manuals for all these new accessories will have wiring diagrams in it for an ASC2, which will also cross for an ASC, and then also an SC2. So for those of you that want the 164 log loader and you want to operate it off the remote, the capability will be there in the manual. You take the 6-pin female, plug it in, connect it to your ASC2, your SC2, and you're up and running. One of the challenges that we face at Lionel is price. Everything in the world continues to go up in price. Nothing really only goes down, except our paychecks. The struggle, the internal struggle, or the internal conversations that we have at Lionel are, do we produce command control accessories that cater to this percentage of the marketplace? And then does that command accessory then exclude this other part of the conventional world? Or do we make it conventional and understand that you can put ASC2, SC2, you can take all the conventional accessories, make them compatible with Legacy or TMCC, which helps keep the price down. Because when you've got to do both, command and conventional, you've got your accessory, you've got your conventional price, you've you've got your command price, but when you put the two of them together, you have your command and conventional price, which now takes us to the top end of the price scale. At what point do we lose sales because the price is too high? So it's a constant struggle within the company. It's really a constant struggle within the industry for all of us. But that's what we face pretty much every day, every week that we're working, trying to come up with new products and new innovations. You know, where does the technology come in? Where does the cost of manufacturing come in? And then where do we sell it at? That, you know, we're not an Obama relief fund where you're getting all the enjoyment and we're losing all the money. So I'll get to your questions in a second. So that's basically how the plug-and-play system is going to work. So 3-pin connector is your primary power. Now for things like a gate man, right? On the classic gate man, what we're doing is you've got a 3-pin connector, and it comes with a new multifunction switch. It's just a single switch box. Again, new Art Deco look to it. It's a multifunction switch in the fact that you can turn it on and you can turn it off. But it's also momentary. It's momentary in the off position and it's momentary in the on position. So it's got two functions in the switch itself. So the gate man out of the box, plug it into your switch. The other end of your switch has that 3-pin connector that you can plug into your track lock on. Push the button, the gate man comes out. Throw the switch, the light turns on. You have functionality out of the box. If you buy the insulated outside rail section with the plug-and-play connector, take it out of the switch box, you plug it into that insulated outside rail. Basically what happens is the light is on all the time. The gate man's been updated to work with 18 volts AC and DC, all the way down to 12 volts. So the light stays on all the time, doesn't burn hot, doesn't melt things, doesn't prematurely die. The coil has been redone, so when the gate man actually activates, comes out, his arm doesn't fly off, the lantern doesn't fly across the layout, it doesn't bounce. But for the new user, right, because many of you don't know this, but in customer service, one of the biggest challenges we have is new users who buy a starter set, and then they get a gate man, and they're on the phone just constantly. How do I hook this up? Ah, it's 3 wires, so what do I do? It's amazing. 3 wires will stifle people. Take this plug it into that piece of track, run your train over it, it works perfect, done. So in many instances, it makes things easier for trying to attract new people into the hobby and reduce some of the challenges that they would otherwise face, having to use Tinnerman clips.
Is that mine?
Well, it's definitely not mine.
It would be Marty's.
The 3-position lock-on has a switch on the side. Allows you to select track power or auxiliary power. Again, aimed at the new user. Gives them a 3-position lock-on. They can take whatever accessory they have, plug it in. We're only using 2 of the 3 positions in that lock-on. It can get its power from the track. It can get its power from that barrel jack. You guys all clearly know how to wire, so here's the trick. Find a 5 millimeter barrel jack, connector, plug it in, cut the wire in half, strip it, put it to your accessory transformer. You have the same functionality if you want to go that route. So you use your auxiliary AC power in the barrel jack, it powers those 3 outputs, or put your bus wire down your layout, take the 2 wires in the pigtail, connect it to your bus, and move on. Any questions on that? In some instances, it's really a good thing for new users, and in some instances, it's not a great thing for old school users because it kind of blurs the lines between run your accessories on track power versus run your accessories on constant voltage accessory power. So unfortunately, there are some compromises we have to make in the system. Overall, we're pretty excited about it. You know, we do a lot of classes with people within the company that are on the racing side of the business that are trying to learn trains. And one of the things that we find consistently is that a lot of people in my generation, younger people, are scared to death to strip wires. You know, they've been taught all their lives, you know, it's electricity. You know, call an electrician. No, it's 18 volts, lithium. I'm sorry, who had the question? You, sir.
What percentage are we in this group?
What percentage of users?
Yeah.
You mean the marketplace?
Yeah.
I would say you're probably about somewhere between 50 and 65% on legacy users. Yeah, legacy or train master, some derivative of the two of the user base. 50 to 60% of the current, you know, new Lionel product production. Core hobby, right? So let's separate that out. You've got your core hobby, which you're the guys that buy trains January through December. Doesn't matter if it comes out in July, May, September, October. You're buying, if you want it, you buy it. Then we have the what we consider the mass market, which is the people who really aren't trained people, but we're trying to get them into the hobby. So that's where the starter sets come into play. So, you know, attractive paint schemes, attractive price points, trying to pull them in and get them hooked. That market, in my mind, is a completely separate market than the core hobby market. Core hobby market is really a separation between conventional and command operators. Conventional operators are the guys that are dyed-in-the-wool post-war, MPC, 031, post-war ZW, 5906 bell buttons. That's pretty much the limit of their technology. So I would say they represent 50 to 35% of the marketplace. Sure. Yes, sir.
Sounds like this horse has already left the barn, but I'm going to ask anyway. For plug and play, was any thought given, instead of having the pigtail permanently attached to the accessory, to have had a pigtail with traditional wires that could have, when you bought the accessory, been hooked up to traditional clips? And then, if you don't want it, you can just take the pigtail off and wire it the way you
Sure.
do.
There was some consideration given to that.
More friendly to people who don't really want plug and play.
Yeah, the problem with that is cost. Right, so we put Tinnerman clips in, cost. We take the cable with bare wires and hook it to that. Now we need a stress relief connector, more cost. You know, now we've got to put a tunnel for the wire to come out of, more cost. It just, you know, we're fighting product cost on the pennies level. You know, if I don't have to put a Tinnerman clip in, yay me. It's one less cost I have to consider. Now, for those of you that are savvy enough, take it apart. When you get to the end of that cable, it's got 3 wires on it. They're color coded. They go to a certain place in the circuit, in the accessory itself. You don't want it, unsolder it, put your wires in there. But from a service perspective, it's great. I mean, really, you're drilling a 3/8 inch hole to run your wires down, drop that cable through it, put it wherever you want underneath. Ever you got a problem, unplug, pull it out, service it, put it back in, it's done. It's really not painful. The whole system has been engineered from the beginning to make it simple, very simple. And unfortunately, it's the 3-rail community. So anytime there's change, there's always controversy. Oh, you can't do that. What are you doing? We're trying to grow the hobby because I don't need to say why. Yes, sir.
Yeah, peripheral, aside from your pension and trying to grow the hobby, how big a hit do you have in the Lion Chief Plus stuff? I tried a couple of them with my grandchildren, and instead of picking up a legacy handhold, man, they love that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just huge.
Yeah, the Lion Chief Plus has been really successful for us. And really, we're only on the tip of the iceberg. You know, we're looking internally on what we can do for accessories with Lion Chief Remote. You know, in some instances, we're kind of somewhat in the corner in the early stages because we're one remote to one locomotive. You know, it's tuned that way.
Yeah, but if you have 2 or 3 grandchildren, man, it's great.
Oh, it's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, when you're looking at a product and you're trying to understand the entire marketplace and where the growth of the product goes, these are some of the challenges that we come up with. You know, do we do multi-function remotes that, you know, can address 6 locomotives through one remote? These are all things that we go back and forth and have constant meetings about and try and sort it out. Because at the end of the day, it's like any other business. You make an investment in it, and if it's a flop, well, guess what? Your money's gone. So, but as a whole, Lion Chief and Lion Chief Plus has been really good. And it's a great, you know, to your point, it's a great starting point for all of you guys that have very expensive locomotives And, you know, the speed limit feature is nice, but let's face it, these kids are smarter than we are when it comes to electronics. They're going to figure out your speed limit setting like that. And then, you know, next thing you know, your 210.10.2 is buried in the side of your tunnel. So you're running all your high-end legacy locomotives on the layout. They've got a locomotive that's not nearly as high-end, not nearly as expensive, and they still have functionality. And again, going back to that percentage of the conventional user, it's a great crossover tool for them to get them off of conventional into some type of command. Now, one of the jokes I make a lot when we do presentations is, you know, for those of you guys out there that can't figure out the legacy remote, we came up with Lion Chief because it has 3 buttons. So.
That was harsh.
I'm going to get back to technical here. The answer to C-Jack's question on the boost control for the LCS has me a little concerned. I have TPCs, and I run them through the SR, or Series
2, yeah.
Okay. When you apply, and when you go down and turn on power to layout and apply power to the TPC, that's where it stops. You need to go to the boost function to get the power to the track. C-Jack alluded to something in here that there's a workaround, but I don't know of any other way to get the TPC going without the boost function.
It's easy. It's in programming. You program it to be a conventional TPC. I don't know what the keystrokes are, but it's, you know, track 7 set, aux 1, whatever, 98, 99. You set it for that for the conventional control so that you control your track power this way. That's your workaround, right? You address track 1, you slide it up, boom, put your track power at 18 volts.
So I lose the capability to turn the track power on and off with boost and the aux.
For your iPad, you don't lose the functionality here. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
A thought had occurred to me on the sensor track for non-LCS equipped locomotives having the capability of...
Non-track IR?
Well, just, yeah, the track IR, just to sense that something is passing over it, a function that we could get out of the sensor track that says something just crossed over to activate a...
So more like, you want it to function more like a St. Peter.
Yeah. Is that, have we got a command in there that comes out?
No. No, there has been some discussion about making a freight car with a track IR device, but pretty much all that's going to do is tell you that the train passed over it. But, you know, again, engineering's kind of doing their thing in California. You know, with my role in the company now, we're really focused on production and, you know, making sure all of our ducks are in a row so that when we do go to production, everything's right. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in that Skunk Works facility out in Santa Clara that I'm not really a part of or even clued into, which is why I come to the meetings and figure out what we're doing.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
do you have a target date for the big boys?
Yeah, December. There are actually sub-assemblies are being constructed right now. There's 39 test points on the production line. When every sub-assembly is done, there's actually a test station for pass-fail. If it fails, it goes back, comes back to the station. And then there's, I think there's 6 separate stations once the locomotive is completed, where it's tested for operations, tested for smoke units, it's tested for functionality, it's tested for deco review. We have 6 people that got on a plane Wednesday last week. 6 U.S. citizens that got on an airplane last week to go to China. So they're probably not pleased to be in China right now, but they're there to support that production. So we are throwing pretty much all the resources that we have that we can leverage at that big boy production. So there's been a lot of excitement around it. There's been a lot of work around it. Engineering has been hard at work at it, and trying to do LCS and the big boy and supporting the other products that we have coming down the pike. You know, we implemented this build to order strategy for 2014. So we were late getting the catalog out. Catalog didn't come out until like March or April. Here's our entire locomotive lineup for 2014 that we're going to ship in the last half of 15. And we're already halfway into the last half of 15. So we've got 3 months to deliver, really 2.5 months to deliver a lot of product. So
It's already 2015?
I'm sorry?
It's already 2015?
You know, I'm already working on 16 product, 15's in the bag. You'll have to forgive me.
How many big boys are you making?
That's a closely guarded company secret, thank you.
Okay.
But you can ask that a different way, though, if you want.
You will be delivering them personally for Christmas with your Santa Claus outfit.
No.
Jim, find out the different way to ask it, okay?
Ask it a different way, same answer. Okay. Okay. All right, any other questions? I just want to make sure I covered all of this. Really, no other questions at all?
I got one. The track selection, they're gonna add to that, there's no crossovers.
I'm sorry,
On the app, the selection of track,
okay.
is that gonna get added to, it's like there's no crossovers in the app?
That's a good question. I honestly can't answer that. That goes back to my comment about Skunk Works and,
Not a problem.
yeah, you know, I'm not on that advisory board for the NSA, so I don't know.
Smoke fluid loader, yes or no?
Yes, it will be made. Been a lot of discussions back and forth. Do we do it? Do we not do it? Do we do it? Do we not do it? We're doing it. You know, probably going to be March, but we'll finally get that thing out. And
15 or 16?
15.
Just want to put you back in frame here.
Thanks for that.
TSA wants the world's good, man.
So, at any rate, so yeah, that's probably March. It could very well be April. You know, one of the things that I somewhat struggle with is, in my role in the company now, we look at, you know, when items are going, when the target is to put items on the boat, and then once it's on the boat, is it 4 weeks or is it 6 weeks till it hits North Carolina? And then it hits North Carolina, you know, did you buy from a guy that's going to get it direct from our warehouse, or is it going to go our warehouse to their warehouse to their dealer to, you know, what's that time frame? And I'm completely blind to all of that. So when I want to say March, what I mean is April, but, you know, if you can give me about a 6-week window for delivery, that would be really good.
So when you said December, the big boy, that means it hits North Carolina in December?
Are you really going to be that guy?
I was looking for the...
No, it's December. It will be delivered in December, but remember, there are 31 days in December.
But it's got to be under the tree earlier than the 31st day.
You didn't say Christmas. You said December. The retail store in the headquarters. What's the idea of opening up a retail store in some building in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina? I'm only kidding, but you know what I mean.
No, really, don't sugarcoat it. Tell us how you feel. So the concept of the retail store is, number one, it gives us an actual forum to try different merchandising things. Again, we're talking about attracting a new audience into the industry. Right, we're trying to grow the hobby. We're trying to bring new people in. So the whole concept is, number one, is branding. It's testing the waters for a branded store. So you go into a train store anywhere in America, you've got, you know, it's pretty clear to see. You've got your Lionel section, and you have your other manufacturer sections. And then you get up to where the locomotives are, and the lines kind of blur, and you know, what's what, and this is a true branding type store. You walk in, there is no doubt in your mind it's a Lionel store. They branded the snot out of it. Merchandising in terms of displays, how we present the product to the consumer, helps us with our dimensions for our set boxes. You know, give you an example. 3 years ago, you bought a Hogwarts Express set. The box is like this. And then if you bought a pen flyer set, the box is like this. And so you put it on the shelf and it does this thing. And it doesn't really look visually appealing from a merchandising standpoint. If you look at all of our Lion Chief sets, everything's the same height. Everything, the depth changes, but the height and the width, pretty much consistent. So for a retailer who wants to dabble in Lionel trains, they can take a dedicated space in their store and have 8 or 9 different product offerings, very nice and neat, right there. Plus, it's a good place for us to have a retail outlet or have a sale outlet for things like, we've got a set that's missing track, or missing this, missing that, or we break the set up, or whatever we do. You know, here's a locomotive for 60 bucks from the starter set, here's some track, transformer, etc. So it's really just an outlet, almost like a visitor center was in Chesterfield. Same basic concept, but there's more to it. Plus there's a lot of racing stuff in there. So if you guys have never been there, as you stand in our lobby, you look out, just slightly over here, there's Charlotte Motor Speedway. So that's three race events every year, plus all the NHRA and all the other stuff that they do in the area. Gives us a retail outlet for the die-cast stuff that the company does as well.
Is it out of the question we'd see additional stores, or is...
I honestly can't tell you that answer. To be honest with you, I show up at the store when something doesn't work, and then I go away. You know, 14-hour days, 5 days a week, I'm in the store almost never. So, but it's nice. You know, as soon as he turns the camera off, I'll tell you something else. But yeah, so that's kind of the concept behind the retail store. It gives us a presence because we're really in Charlotte, in the Charlotte metropolitan area. There's really no big representation of Lionel whatsoever. Yes, sir.
When will the rest of the cab forwards?
The rest of the cab forwards will be out by the middle of November.
All right, it's we actually went a little longer than we usually do.
Right.
If you want to hang around, check out the demo board or ask any questions of the demo board, we can. Have a good show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Marty.
Well, what I figure is that how do we get the variety? Just wire.